What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, Joker back again, once again, and today we're talking about the latest TWAB. I know, I'm a tad bit late on this, but there may or may not have been a lore video that didn't quite pan out, and well, here we are. But enough about unfinished videos, we are here to talk about the TWAB, or at least the part of the TWAB that is relevant to the consistent game of buffs and nerfs. Because, as we all know, when you play the game of buffs and nerfs, you either win, or you die! Yes? So, like many of you already likely know, but because every video is somebody's first, Bungie in their most recent weekly update outlined a handful of weapon changes coming to a Destiny 2 sandbox near you in Season 14. Quote, "Weapon archetypes. Aggressive 120 RPM hand cannons are very dominant in PvP, and we've received enough feedback that we want to rein them in a bit, without completely taking away their range benefits. These weapons will now have damage and aim assist fall-off distances reduced between 2 and 4 meters based on the range stat. This roughly halves the range buff they received in Beyond Light." The ever-present issue of range on weapons and map design. I don't think range is actually the issue here, I do think it's map design mixed with player movement. But what are you gonna do? It's easier to nerf range than it is to change map design or player movement. At the same time, Bungie not addressing it is still kind of like trying to put a band-aid on a gunshot wound. But like I said, what are you gonna do? Sure, you could make high-performing primaries less reliable, but then you just increase the amount of special weapon and ability usage. I mean, that's already a huge problem in Destiny, so that is what it is. That's a whole other conversation. But once you start neutering primary weapons that people are using, you just incentivize more special weapon use and more ability spam. Why would anyone duel with a hand cannon when they can just dodge roll 37 times and shotgun you in the face? The other issue with neutering range on a primary weapon is you start to codify a meta where range, and more range becomes the only viable option, as range controls more than just how far out damage fall-off starts. But moving forward. Vortex frame swords. With Falling Guillotine now viable forever, we need to adjust it a little, as its damage output is flat out higher than all other legendary swords. With this change, we allow it to keep its high damage output, but are reducing its full reserves damage output by reducing the number of heavy attacks you'll be able to perform. Full energy heavy attack ammo cost increased from 4 to 6. Legitimate question, who, if anyone, was still using Falling Guillotine? I don't know, maybe they'll bring back Dark Drinker. With us heading towards Witch Queen, it's not unthinkable to assume we might go back and recreate one of the 3 exotic swords that we made from Oryx's sword, Willbreaker. That said, if the weapon's still in development, why just not tune it there instead of nerfing Falling Guillotine? Like I said, is anybody even still using that sword? Chip damage. Certain weapons, swords, and bastion bypass shields by varying amounts, which has caused numerous issues with stasis-encased enemies, encounter mechanics, and other content. We have removed chip damage from swords and bastion. Sounds to me like they just needed to remove stasis. Okay. Jokes aside, cool, if it was causing issues with the game and this fixes the issue, remove it. Who cares? But now, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, on to the actual meat and potatoes, the reason everyone is actually here. Perks. Quickdraw. This perk is intended to provide a faster swap speed, but also passively buffs handling by plus 100. This completely negates the downside of using low handling weapons, such as aggressive shotguns, sniper rifles, and hand cannons. This isn't something we want to encourage. Those weapons should have a downside, and working around those completely via a perk isn't healthy. We don't think allowing a fast swap to the shotgun family with the highest one-hit kill range is great either. The handling bonus is now removed 1 second after switching to the weapon, or upon aiming down sights. Replace Quickdraw with Surplus on new and existing drops of Fellwinter's Lie and Astral Horizon. That's actually kind of crazy because realistically, this is a hard nerf to hunter players. No more dodge and shotgun or melee shuriken to slow a target down and then quick draw your shotgun. Hunters are quite possibly the spammiest class in the game. So tying the best shotgun handling perk available now to ability usage is brilliant. Not only does this nerf shotgun usage, but it nerfs hunters without actually nerfing hunters. Because now hunters have to start making choices. They can't just freely spam abilities and shotgun everything.
But Joker,
I hear you cry out in your shrill tremulous voice.
hunters can just circumvent the nerf, and so can warlocks by using exotics.
Okay, and I agree, but that's a choice. Now, for example, a hunter has to use Dragon Shadow instead of the go-to Stompies. I absolutely love forcing players to think about how they're going to play and what builds they're going to make. This is supposed to be an RPG MMO for crying out loud. You should be forced to choose what your build looks like, not just, I get to do everything all the time because fuck you, that's why. And this isn't me hating on hunters. Every class is going to have to figure out how to deal with this new shotgun nerf. Hunters and warlocks have exotics that can help circumvent this. However, titans don't, which kind of makes sense. What's the other perk on Fellwinners? Slide shot. I don't know if you wonderful ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages have noticed, but Bungie really wants titans to slide around. I mean, not only do we have an entire subclass built around it, but we also have exotics to help it out. So again, being pushed into a role that your class is supposed to play. I like it. Frenzy. This perk has extremely high uptime in PvE, to the point where it is clearly a better choice than most other damage perks. We like the high uptime and want to preserve that, but want to award less damage than harder to activate damage perks. Reduce bonus damage from plus 20% to plus 15%. Huh. And here I was thinking they'd go after Rampage first. Nothing really to say on this one. Reservoir Burst now increases magazine size in addition to its other effects. Reduce full battery bonus damage from 33% to 25%. Upcoming content requires revisiting the power level of a damage perk that can be activated simply by having a full magazine. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Say no more. So they're either going to bring back Loaded Question, put it on an exotic, or like with Desperado, introduce the perk to a new fusion rifle, which is cool. Reservoir Burst was never so good that it broke the game, but it was always kind of an interesting fun perk moving forward. Exotics, the Lament. This weapon is a clear outlier for sword damage, so for the health of heavy weapon diversity, we're pulling it back a bit. Reduce damage of revved heavy attack by approximately 16%. Note, the Lament retains standard anti-barrier despite removing chip damage. Look, I'm not saying I don't get it, but at the same time, this is one of those scenarios by which it's really a self-fulfilling prophecy. Introduce a heavy weapon, everybody loves this heavy weapon. Nerf heavy weapon. Introduce next heavy weapon. Everybody loves this heavy weapon. Nerf heavy weapon. Rinse, repeat. More so when the question has to be asked, why are people using the Lament? Could it be that you have raid encounters where the Lament is optimal? Could it be because you created a class of champions that need shield popped while also having a fuck ton of health, and Lament is just optimal? Does Lament need to be nerfed because it does so much damage, or do other weapons need to be brought up or created to compete with Lament? And not just in damage, but in functionality. Bastion. Since we're removing chip damage, Bastion gets something else instead. We've noticed increased feedback on Bastion and higher than normal usage in PvP, so are making a small change here and will revisit Bastion later. Intrinsically staggers unstoppable champions. Increased spread angle by 13%. I feel like the Bastion nerf sits in the same territory as the Lament nerf. Higher than average usage in PvP? What does that even mean? It's not even top 5. It's barely top 10. And that's because, and I have a feeling, maybe, just maybe, that has something to do with Bungie introducing 3 hand cannons that sit in the energy slot that are really, really good. So if you want to use your Palindrome or Bottom Dollar or Igneous Hammer, what are you going to use in your primary slot? You have what? Chaperone, Astral Horizon, and Bastion. So does Bastion have increased usage because it's just broken, or does Bastion have increased usage because you've shifted the meta to energy-based primaries, and now, lo and behold, people are looking for something to pair with it. I'm not even going to sit here and tell you Bastion doesn't need a nerf, it needs something. More so if they're going to eventually introduce a catalyst. What I will say is I'm not a huge fan of their rationality behind it. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did, subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. But above all else, stay frosty.